Hello and welcome to Chapter 11. Today we're going to be talking about the EHRD intervention, employee counseling and wellness services. So why is this an EHRD intervention? If you think about it, when employees come to work, they bring their personal problems with them. And because personal problems are such a big part of an employee's life, they also affect the behavior at work, as well as affecting their personal life. So problems they bring to work, such as these, can contribute to accidents on the job, absenteeism, turnover, poor decisions, decrease in productivity, increased costs, etc. Some other reasons why a company would do this: there's a rising healthcare costs. So if we can keep our employees healthy and happy, we'll save money on health care. It also allows us to reduce workers' compensation costs, tardiness, absenteeism, lost time from work, so on and so forth. Plus, there's a shortage of skilled workers. So once an organization gets somebody that is skilled, they want to keep them. So they would rather work with and fix this person rather than have to go through recruiting and hiring another person, maybe not quite so successfully. So what is counseling? Okay, this is, we talked about coaching, so we're going to talk about some of the differences, but counseling is a relationship established between a trained counselor and an employee. Okay, so the relationship involves discussion of personal problems that the employee is experiencing. Could also involve a referral if the counselor can't help the employee or there's some specific problem, they could refer them to another resource and that sort of thing. Okay, so this is an HRD activity, and if we look at coaching and counseling, they're often intertwined. Supervisors are generally encouraged to provide early identification and referral to trained professionals or counseling services. So we're not really asking the supervisor per se to handle an employee's personal problems. That's oftentimes awkward for the employee and the supervisor. But the supervisor plays a big role in this. So there's a link between counseling and coaching. As we talked about in Chapter 10, much of coaching is focused on the worker's performance on the job and improving that performance. But many of the problems could be tied to the worker's personal life. So counseling comes in and focuses on these problems, especially on how they affect the worker's performance. So typically in counseling programs, we have to identify the problem, provide education, provide a referral to the best resource, provide counseling, treatment, and follow-up. Some companies do this in-house. They have their own counseling staff. Other companies contract this out to an independent service. And you can read through the book. It talks about the advantages and disadvantages of each one of those approaches. So it kind of depends. So the characteristics of an effective counseling program, you can also read about this in the book, but a few really important things here. Top management has to be committed and support the program. Otherwise, supervisors aren't going to, carry out the program. It has to be clearly written. You have to have policies and procedures. How is this going to work? Okay, there has to be a policy concerning confidentiality, or employees won't employees won't partake of the program if they think that what they say is going to be repeated to their supervisors or someone else. Okay, so the first element of this topic is an employee assistance program, or EAP. These are job-based programs that operate in an organization. And what this is a way to identify employees who need help and try to get them to resolve the problem and provide access to counseling or treatment for employees who need these services. And places where I've worked, we've also extended that to the employee's family, because problems with an employee's spouse or children or other people living in their house, possibly parents or in-laws, is going to affect the employee's performance as well. So I've often seen that extended. So why are these needed? Why do we need these EAPs? You can read all the statistics in the book about substance abuse and mental health. I thought these statistics were very telling, about the money that it costs companies and society when people have these issues. So it makes sense that we set up some sort of an intervention sort of program to help people. So the EAP approach is all about the supervisor. They have to monitor the employee's performance and confront them if it's unsatisfactory, and coach them, and then urge them to use the EAP if that's appropriate, if it's because they have personal problems. The supervisor also has to emphasize the consequences of continued poor performance. What happens if the employee doesn't get help and this behavior continues? The employer may have no other choice than to discipline or terminate the employee. So the supervisor has to be involved on the forefront with all that. And the book talks about how the supervisor has a constructive confrontation with the employee, where the employee is asked to seek help from the EAP and told the consequences. EAPs are based on the premise that work is very important to people, and the work itself isn't the cause of the problem, but the workplace serves as a great means to get people help. Okay, so the supervisor is critical to the process. Therefore, we have to educate the supervisor. So a lot of the EHRD approach is to educate the supervisor in how to recognize problems and what to do if there are problems. So a key ingredient in this is job leverage, and how I've often seen it worked is where there's a problem with an employee, the supervisor will tell the employee that they need to go to the EAP for services in order to continue their employment. Okay, so the job is kind of used as leverage to get the employee to go seek the help that they need. So EAPs typically have a policy and procedure. We have to have employee education campaigns. We have to let employees know, what this is about. Oftentimes there are brochures, or we give cards or something like that. Posters hanging up in the break room. There's all kinds of ways to kind of get this out. A supervisory training program, clinical services, follow-up monitoring. We want to make sure that everything's taken care of, and we have to evaluate this program just like any other type of EHRD intervention. Okay. Excuse me. So the next topic is stress management. And I'm sure if you think about it, we've all been stressed out at one time or another, and how that feels. So stress is a common aspect of the work experience. So it can be expressed as job dissatisfaction, anger, frustration, hostility, irritation. And the outcome of this, if it's not handled appropriately, could be disruption of the work. There could be accidents, mistakes being made, poor decisions. There could be aggressive behavior, an employee stealing or getting into an altercation with someone else or a supervisor. They could leave the job, early or come in late. Could have absenteeism issues. They could go home and take it out on their family, which is not good. Or they can exhibit self-damaging behaviors, alcohol, drug use, things like that, which are not good. So stress if we look at it, and the book says it's kind of hard to define this, but it's an environmental force affecting the individual, which is a stressor, and then the individual's reaction to this stressor. Okay, that's sort of what stress would consist of. So we have intervention programs, educational interventions, where we educate people about the sources of stress, what it feels like, how to avoid stressors. Then skill acquisition interventions, where we provide employees with ways to cope with the stressors. Sort of like this guy here, kind of zenned out on his desk doing meditation. There's some issues with this. We have to look for specific issues with employees instead of talking generally about stress. We need to determine, what's going on with employees. We have to assess, is there a problem? How widespread is it? It could be the whole organization. It may not be an employee problem, it may be an organizational problem. We need to look at solutions and interventions. We need to evaluate it. We need feedback. The next area is wellness and health promotion programs. These are activities that promote employee behavior and organizational practices that ensure employee health and fitness. So we want to promote this sort of behavior in employees because, as we said earlier, healthcare costs are going up, and if we can keep employees healthy, our healthcare costs will go down, productivity increases, turnover decreases. Employees are just happier and healthier, which is really, if you think about it, good for everybody, the employee and the company. Okay, so there are different programs. Some companies do a level 1 program, which means they just cover educational activities. And may not attempt to directly change the behavior. They're just kind of putting up posters or sending newsletters or doing health screenings. In level 2, they attempt to actually change the behavior. So this could be exercise classes, membership in fitness centers, things like that. Level 3 is where this kind of goes to the extreme. They try to create an environment that helps employees maintain healthy lifestyles. They could have healthy food in their cafeteria or their break room and support, have wellness walks during lunch or things like this. Just kind of a culture of wellness, so to speak. So some common components, exercise and fitness is a big thing that a lot of companies do. They're very popular with employees as well as companies. One major problem is a lot of people who take advantage of these programs aren't the ones that really need to. They would be out exercising anyway. So it's very difficult to try to motivate people into these programs. Get people to quit smoking, get people to eat better and control their weight. High blood pressure. A lot of companies do blood pressure screenings and help people, with that. So there are some issues with this. The book talks about research issues. We always want to know about the effectiveness. We have to evaluate these things. So there aren't a lot of studies that demonstrate the effectiveness of these programs. Okay, but it appears that the interventions such as these are successful, but more research needs to be done to actually tie into the results. There are some legal issues. There are laws that cover things to do with this. The Drug-Free Workplace Act requires companies to do certain things with counseling and rehab and EAPs. There are state laws and federal laws. The Rehabilitation Act of 1973 comes into play. Most importantly, Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, or the ADA, has a lot to do with this because this law is the one that prohibits employers from discriminating against individuals with disabilities and requires that employers make reasonable accommodation to help employees perform their jobs. And this law covers employees with alcohol and drug problems. It considers that a disability. So employers need to be very careful how they deal with these issues. They need to make reasonable accommodation and that sort of thing. There are some ethical issues, mainly to do with confidentiality, because all the records dealing with EAPs and these wellness issues need to be maintained separately and not released to anyone. Then the other issue is whether these programs should be voluntary or mandatory. Should we force employees into these programs? I told you an example where employees were forced in or they would be terminated. Okay, so those are issues that have to be kind of worked through, and they're kind of situation specific. Okay, you have to kind of see what's going on. Well, those are the high points from Chapter 11. I hope it kind of gave you something to think about and think about, companies you've worked for. Did they have these sorts of services? Did they have EAPs? Did they have different wellness and counseling services? Thank you.